There we go. So welcome everyone to officially the November meeting, the penultimate one of the year. This is just one of the many different activities that we conduct, as part of the Institute, continuously looking how we can build the global community around strategy implementation. We're coming up for our third year. And Antonio and I are delighted with the response we've had, the recognition, but most important for us has been the feedback of people attending the course, how much they've enjoyed, how rich it's been for them. We've somewhere between around about 150 members, as I said earlier, ranging all the way from Australia, New Zealand, to California and Brazil. So we vary the timing of these meetings for different audiences. And today, it's my delight, we'll follow the regular pattern. I'm going to just give a brief. We've only got a couple of updates for today, which we'll keep short because we're going to go straight into, we're going to go straight into the pleasure of hearing from David, who's a strategist for corporate ventures. And he very much works with startups and the development of looking at their strategies from the three perspectives he'll share with us today on how they can leverage their digital growth. I'll do an introduction in a few minutes. And we'll also have a group discussion because in the Institute, implementation is all about the action. So it's not just about knowledge, but it's how we apply that knowledge. So some quick updates, very minor this month, last few weeks. One of the key things, though, is we've added an extra page to the website, which is reflecting our 2023 focus. We've now added the corporate membership page, and we're going to share and promote for B2B. So during the launch, it was the beginning of the pandemic, and we were very much focusing on B2C. But as part of our new focus, and I'm just going to bring over the website. Okay, so you can see here, we're very much focusing on now looking also at B2B. And this is where the benefit for an organization is they can train multiple people simultaneously in the missing skill of strategy implementation. So the main benefit for organizations, it will give them qualified professionals. We'll also be able to track individuals as a team, so we can give them monthly updates on their progress. It allows you to accelerate strategy implementation within the company. And we also do a discount for the corporate. So you can see here the pricing. So this is very much going to be our focus as we go into 2023. So we've added the corporate membership. Something, just as a reminder, we covered a couple of months ago, but many people weren't on that call. As a member, one of the things, whether you've taken the course or not, or whether your course is expired, one of the benefits of the membership is we continuously update the course. And when we update with new papers or new research, we will add it and give you complimentary access in the members page. So under the value creation, for example, we recently added a couple of external papers that you can see at the bottom there. So it's always good to have a look and just check. And of course, each month we'll let you know when we add new material. Okay, so the last couple of articles we added, one was performance and innovation are the rewards of digital transformation. And the second one is eliminate strategic overload. We're also open, and this is something in 2023 we're also going to be encouraging for the members to contribute recommendations, even your own research, your own papers, and just share with us your work that you recommend should be part of the course. Just a reminder also, the monthly meeting, you can see it now. Whenever you're not sure when it is or the time zone or where it's located, you can always find it on the website. And you can add it to your calendar. Oh, here we go. And as you know, the playbook we launched a couple of months ago. Absolutely delighted with the feedback we've received on it. It's launched only on the Amazon platform, and we offered a discount to members of 30%. And for those of you who, everyone received the ebook, and some of you have already purchased, those who like a hard copy. Larry and I were just talking about that earlier. You know, some of us are old-fashioned, we still like the paperback, but it's been very well received. We color-coded the design in the 7 modules that make up the SIP, the Strategy Implementation Professional course, and very easy to use and reference. So this complements you after you finish the course if you want to refer back or you're looking for a reference. Okay. And here we go. Wow, it's a big picture of David. So it's going to be my great pleasure to introduce David Isaac. David is not only being a colleague, but also a great friend here in Singapore. He's a 5th generation Singaporean, and he focuses on working very much with startups and helping organizations as a strategist for corporate ventures. And he previously worked in Ernst & Young, and then he was running a company called GrowthOps, which worked with one of my key clients as well, DBS. So David and I, when I launched my book, The World's Best Bank, it was a very natural request for David and his team at GrowthOps to come and help me with the marketing of the book. And I have to tell the story, David, I'm sorry, but he clipped me round the ear when I was starting to launch the book, and I'd finished the story of DBS, and I'd been working with the CEO, Piyush, and I had 2 years exclusive access. And I prepared my LinkedIn social media message saying, my book's coming out in 4 weeks. And David clipped me in the ear and said, Robin, nobody cares that your book is coming out in 4 weeks. Where's the value for the customer? And working with David has been an absolute joy as he's drilled it into me in everything you say, you do, your language, your positioning. It's around the value for the customer. And we're going to hear from him today about the de-risking of strategy and his unique approach that he takes. So David, I will stop sharing and hand over to you if you're ready to go.
Hello, good morning, good evening, everybody. Let's just keep it to hello. Can everybody hear me okay? Can I get a wave? Yeah, what an interactive card. It's a real pleasure. Robin has been very gracious in his introduction of me. Today's going to be a little short one. So if you can imagine that what I'll be sharing today is typically a 3 to 16 hour program that I run for corporates. I'm trying to align everybody from the leadership and C-suite level down to execution teams. But it's something that we're very passionate about, right? De-risking growth. Because whether it's strategy, whether it's implementation, what we really care about is driving that growth and that new growth. So we get very excited about that. Well, I do, because I'm a proper nerd in terms of management. So how do we add reliability in growth today? So we're going to cover 3 typical strategy gaps. I'll go into them in a little bit. But I take a very comprehensive approach in my consulting. And that is by aligning customer experience to the product strategy and then using that to launch new products more effectively. So a little bit about me. I bring a background in digital transformation. When I worked at Ernst & Young, I bring a background and quite a few industry standards and benchmarks to corporate venture building, which is quite interesting because I've been commissioned to create proprietary data for the Singapore government. We have interesting data around things like that. So every edge in getting something off the ground is well appreciated by our clients. And I like to wrap it up in business model design for product-led growth. So overall, I call it growth and product strategy. These are some of the things that I've done, some of the people I've done it for. So whether it's launching new special projects, whether it's running companies, I've even consulted to a McKinsey, Bain, BCG. I've consulted to several banks and MNCs, so a bit about the standards, a bit about the common failure points and the ways to recover from those failure points and de-risk growth. I've led a listed company. I've launched 3 different corporate ventures. Robin mentioned I was a chief growth officer, so that mix of being on the inside and on the outside consulting and being a part of the company, a lot of learnings from that. And these are some of the companies that I've helped, like Ernst & Young, Standard Chartered Ventures, so the bank's investment arm, Samsung's product innovation team, a $240 million e-commerce company, BCG Digital Ventures, which is a great company to work with, a cybersecurity spin-off, Central Group, one of the biggest companies in Southeast Asia and ASEAN, Frank Muller luxury watch brand. All right, so let's chat a little bit about growth as part of a system, right? So if you want to de-risk, you really have to take a very comprehensive view. And a lot of people talk about agility, and they talk about lean, and they talk about getting to market with an MVP very quickly. However, when you do that,
David, I'll just clarify, minimum viable product.
Yes, thank you, Robin. So a minimum viable product. So launching the quickest source of value that you can for a potential customer. But when you do that, you are launching and testing several hypotheses at once. And there's a lot of cross-functional skill that's needed to really make sure that the growth wins. Unfortunately, up to 90% of startups can fail. So let's talk about growth as a system. So there's something that we encapsulate this in a very simple way, the growth flywheel, right? So this is the customer's journey from a business lens. It's very important to both maintain what we need for a sustainable business with the business lens, but we have to map that to the customer journey, because what is the value to the customer? What is the value that he perceives? What is the value he experiences? Is it going to become a part of his life, or is he going to forget about you tomorrow, right? So these are very important considerations in being customer centric. But let's talk about it from the business lens first. So the beginning of a flywheel of growth, especially when you talk about product-led companies or about digital-led or platform-led companies, where the product is, it's self-serve, you sign on, you start to experience benefit online, right? So acquisition actually happens on the platform, on the app. And then you get into an issue of engagement and retention. If you acquire them, are they going to engage long-term and experience the value? And are they going to stay a part of their business long enough for you to get to the third point, which is monetization? So all our considerations, almost everything that we speak about, whether it's a matrix organization or a cross-functional team or a product-led growth team, has to consider these 3 things. And these 3 things require that cross-disciplinary team to solve, because nothing is ever that easy in life. Acquisition is a very cross-disciplinary function. Engagement and retention is a very cross-disciplinary function. So let's build up to this, right? Which is that if you want to win in the market, customer-centric design-led businesses use the customer experience to align all the departments to the customer and the business model. That is the only way you can achieve stickiness, and that's the only way you can achieve scale, right? So this is understanding, and it is best practice. A lot of hidden knowledge in the world resides in the biggest consulting companies in the world, because they have domain experts, cross-function experts, and they tie everything to strategy. And you'll see that the parts that do leak out, and I have worked with some of them, is that they are also helping very large companies reorganize the entire company to the customer journey. So rather than having a legal team and a marketing and a product team, you have cross-functional pods that work in acquisition, in engagement, retention, in monetization, and how do you get people through that funnel. Let's move on and give you a little bit more color
David,
on this.
Can I ask an example? Because you went through that very quickly and there was a lot of rich information in it.
Yeah, there's going to be
an example of what you mean, through the monetization, through the different departments. Could you just help?
I'll give that to you in just a moment, in just the following slide. So this is not the longest presentation I've given, but I've tried to include as many examples as I can in the time frame. But what's really exciting is to be able to, for the first time, so this is the subject of my research, creating the new domain of connecting the customer journey to the business model, which we've never been able to do before because customer experience as a domain is very new. Marketing is very robust and we have a lot of the research that we need, but product strategy and customer strategy are very new domains, and we don't have detailed frameworks and detailed methodologies and theories that talk about predictive success. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect a couple of frameworks, and then I'm going to give you mini case studies to flesh this out and what it looks like in the real world, and then connect it to the 3 gaps that often hamper reliable growth. So in the same kind of flywheel, you notice the color of the flywheel has changed and the words are different now, because now we're not going to take the business lens, we're going to take the customer journey lens, because a customer has a journey in his life and in your product. So we need to map that so that we can assign time and resources and people and talent and investment to where the gap is happening, and make sure that we create a flywheel of iterative growth. Otherwise, we lose customers as fast as we acquire them, sometimes faster than we acquire them, and growth is no longer reliable. So that first moment we have to get them to is the moment of value perception. It can be as simple as that point where they see a banner and in 7 words, they see, this is something that's worthwhile. I'm going to click and go into a website and a landing page, right? So think of that as the moment of value perception, but it can be in other ways too, not just digital means. The second moment is the moment of value experience. This is the first time your business provides value to the customer. The most advanced companies now are starting to provide value on their digital platforms even before the user signs in, even before the user creates a registered account, even before the user downloads an app. Some demos have gotten so advanced, they can actually give you experience. There's a company, for example, called Canva, which has become a very significant unicorn in the world. And if you go to the Canva website, basically it is a graphic design program in your browser. You will be able to create an ad, you'll be able to create art, you'll be able to create whatever digital visual thing that you want to do in Canva before they ever ask you for a registration or for your email or for a payment. And they acquire users, right? Because the users perceive the value immediately. There's no steps, there's no read me, how to, introduction, about me. They show you the canvas, they show you all the things that the tools that are available, and you go straight to experiencing value. And that is one of the best ways to acquire and lock into a user, because it becomes very real to him. Excuse me. Excuse me, just recovering from a few bugs. So after the moment of value experienced, right? And we'll talk about the order of these, which is very important. You come to the moment of value adopted. This is when your product or service or business becomes a part of their life. This is what we call long-term retention. If you cannot get them through these moments, they will never become a long-term user of your business, and you will lose them after 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Sometimes you'll lose them after they've downloaded the app before they've opened it. Sometimes you will lose them after the first time they logged into the app and they never come back. Because between 90 and 70% of people either never open the app they downloaded or never come back a second time, which is shocking. But that's the state of attention in the world today. It's a very crowded world. As Robin requested, let's make this real. Okay, so this is a company some of you may know, right? They connect the customer journey that you saw in the green flywheel, the 3 moments, to the business model very well. And at all points, they create cross-functional teams to not only help you perceive value more viscerally, more meaningfully and relevantly to you, but also create a lot of additional value experienced outside the product. So it's not just inside the product they're creating value, it's outside the product. In this case, this is screen caps from actual emails, all right? So how do they use the journey to create the data that allow them to do real-time personalized triggers and actually improve the customer experience, not just the perception of value, but the experience of value. After you've bought a new phone, in this case, it's very important to remember for this story, the iPhone 13 Pro, they send you, look, an email. Favorite tips to help you get the most out of your new iPhone. They know that I have the phone because when you log into the phone, you create an Apple ID. And that becomes the whole way that they create a relationship with the customer online, in the product, and digitally outside the product. Techniques to shoot great photos, videos, explore tools you love using every day, and discover useful features you can set up for the start. So this becomes not an email saying, thank you for being a customer, which would be nice. They are here to help you experience more value from a device that has thousands of features, right? For a wide range of people. Let's keep going. Going into the email, they know your appetite for content and they give you different levels of content within the email. In this case, this is high level content of very key new features that are big sellers for you, right? So they're at this point creating value perception, but ensuring that you know about the most important things that are new in your new product that you've spent a lot of money for, so that there is no cognitive dissonance, there's no disappointment after purchase. And so that you will continue to engage, enjoy, create word of mouth, referral, and get full use out of this and become a long-term customer and not just a one-off customer or return the phone. And making sure you get lots of value. Going in, there are other tidbits of other things to help you get more value out of it. So they go into several levels, but they don't overwhelm you either. Now, why is this so worthy of even making a kind of a case study? Now look at this, right? When you search for welcome to your new iPhone, if you can see here, there were no emails that I received. This is, of course, a case study on myself. There were no emails received welcoming me to my new phone in between 2018 and 2021, right? So between the iPhone 10 and the iPhone 13, I did not buy a new phone. What does that mean? That means that Apple uses a mix of marketing teams, product marketing teams, data analytics teams, report generation teams, personalized marketing technology, legal, finance, PDPA, product and hardware and software integration, whole bunch of cross-functional teams to create a very personalized journey so that they do not make mistakes, because it would be a terrible thing for them to send me an email saying, please buy the new iPhone 13 the day after I bought an iPhone 13. Right? And they're not just sending me emails saying, please buy a new phone, they're actually helping me get more value out of my phone. So that's great, right? So what did they do? Did they stop there? No, right? So there's another screen, surprise, surprise. In this story, what they do is that they send you an email if you have not bought the latest phone, helping you find ways to get the next best experience from their products. So they don't tell you, please buy the iPhone 11 or the iPhone 12. They apply a cross-functional team to help you perceive more value because you haven't entered the flywheel this round, right? From the last time they monetized you, you haven't re-entered into their acquisition phase again. So now they're trying to reacquire you, but they're not just sending you an ad about the phone. They are using finance and supply chain, right? Insights from there. How much can you get for a trade-in in your currency, in your dollar, including a link to enter your serial number of your phone. Where is the latest trade-in center? How much can you get for your exact phone? They have hire purchase agreements, again, legal finance teams that you don't think of as creating more value in marketing, but they're doing that because they leave no stone unturned in making sure that you perceive value so they can get you to experience value again. So they are very detailed and cross-functional and study the entire customer journey so they can create personalization, because as you can see here in the breadcrumbs, real-time data is strategy and revenue advantage. And they remove all the frictions. So the crux of the talk today will be the 3 gaps that we identify that companies who aren't able to succeed, sometimes the challenges fall within these 3 gaps. So let's head them off before they become a challenge, right? So the first gap is the strategy gap. This is when strategy isn't complete enough for it to be actionable or to really make that competitive advantage. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. It's not COVID, but it's another one of those bugs that I just recovered from. The second gap is the execution gap. This is when execution cannot succeed because the dependency of the strategy gap has not given you all the tools and all the insights and the specificity that you need for execution to succeed. So this is really about, in a nutshell, building very accurately the plan, but it's the wrong plan. After which we have the growth strategy gap. So you can think about this as the growth gap, and this is at the operational and at the team level, when teams don't have clear next steps for action, which is a recipe for disaster. So the first step when strategy isn't complete, right? If growth is really a system, I hope you all agree, what lies in between the strategy and product development? And this is a challenge question for you. Is it bi-directional, right? Because in between strategy and product development, don't you want two-way communication to de-risk, right? The iterative production of better strategy. So if we simplify strategy, it can be boiled down to perhaps, right? How do we plan to win in the market? And then people straight away jump into what do we build? In between that, the question of what do we build and how do we sell it and how does the product actually achieve the strategy is a missing gap, right? And I call this part of the strategy gap because it is the connective tissue that allows us to build the right thing, not build it well, not build the wrong thing well, but build the right thing well. And that's often missing. It seems very impossible, but it is the biggest challenge in both corporate innovation as well as MNCs and clients that we have worked with. And it's a great thing to find, and then you can fix it. And then with those insights, how do you find the real-time data in the customer journey and make sure that you're looking at leading indicators and not lagging indicators? So again, just to emphasize, this is an execution gap, right? So in the strategy, we don't know how we should execute. And we need this connective tissue, and it's often missing. What happens when you don't have this level is that you have something that Harvard calls emergent strategy. Deliberate strategy is what we plan at the leadership level. Emergent strategy is what happens if all the thousands of trade-offs that all our employees make every day, they make decisions which are trade-offs. If those decisions aren't made with enough clarity of what exactly the strategy needs to achieve, you get a very different execution from what the company and leadership intends. But because it's very hard to spot this, it's quite insidious. A lot of teams don't know whether it was strategy that was wrong or execution that was wrong, because they do not know that they haven't given enough clarity to their teams. Otherwise, they would have given it. So it is a very insidious problem. But with enough clarity and understanding and having this execution, this connective tissue, you can iteratively improve your strategy or your execution as needs be. So it becomes bidirectional and iterative. So we need leading indicators and the right kind of reporting. As a case study, right? If a bank wants to grow, they have a mix usually of physical branches and digital platforms, right? So the questions that strategy have to go down to the granularity is not say we want to grow by $100 million in revenue next year, or 500,000 new accounts, right? They have to go to increasing levels of granularity to be able to solve both the strategy gap and the execution gap. So they have to know, are our physical branches a sustainable or transient competitive advantage, right? They're great when everything's going okay, but they're a problem when they're a primary channel to the customer and it's COVID, for example. They're a problem if the cost of employment go up in a country and queuing times go up because we can't increase the number of employees we have as the company grows. Are the physical branches a credibility, or are they just unnecessary cost to deliver the same amount of value, right? That's the emergence of digital only banks, for example. Whether or not they're profitable, that's a separate question. And if we understand all the customers' needs, what are their unmet needs and what are their important unmet needs? Because are those being solved by the physical branches, or do we have to add digital platforms to solve these unmet and important needs? Just as an example, if you have long queuing times, I think that's a good one. is a digital platform the correct way to solve the long queuing times? Because if you have a digital platform, is it about lowering costs of doing business? Or is it about a strategic investment that adds value to the experience and adds more products to the experience, adds more features, more convenience to the experience? If the execution teams do not know the answers to these questions and the trade-offs that are deliberately being made, the product will have all sorts of features that may or may not contribute to lower queuing times, right? The app may or may not be profitable, but is that the intention of that? Is the app to be profitable, or is it to lower queuing times in the physical branches, right? So does the digital platform replace or augment the physical experience? Strategy and leadership need to tell us, otherwise we will build the wrong thing correctly or well or efficiently. And does it replace or augment how we acquire new customers? Is that the purpose of the previous physical branch or the digital platform, or is it a mix of the two? So there are many more questions than this. And of course, if you do a business model design in detail, you should answer all these questions, but unfortunately, often there's a strategy gap, right? So let's revisit this and talk about, as you analyze your business or your clients, how are you approaching acquisition, engagement, and monetization? And are cross-functional teams maximizing the flow and the speed of your customers through this journey? Okay. And interestingly enough, especially when it comes to monetization, are the CFO and the CMO working together? Because a lot of the time, companies spend a lot of money acquiring customers with a broad targeting approach, but they haven't identified, for example, the cost of service of each customer segment, in addition to the cost of acquisition. So you do not know actually, when you are acquiring, if you're acquiring a highly profitable customer or slightly less profitable customer or a non-profitable customer. But because you haven't painted the entire journey and the entire company all with one brush, the correct data is not being brought that allows you to have predictive and leading indicators to be a more profitable business for more reliable growth. The kind of data that we bring now, right, is this detailed and nuanced understanding. So strategy has to have the data on an iterative basis to be able to understand engagement. Now, engagement with a core aspect of a digital product, for example, right? How much a person uses a core feature, right? How many new users are using this core feature? How many new users are continuing over time to use this new feature? How many users are using the core feature more often? That's expansion. How many users stopped using the new feature? And then we managed to use a mix of marketing, product marketing, triggers in the platform, triggers off the platform to get them to come back to the platform. How many users are engaging less on a month-on-month basis? How many users have left? And we have to apply marketing and product on platform and off platform to turn churned customers into resurrected customers. If you don't study your customer journey and have this kind of data, this is, of course, anonymized data, but the understanding is about that. Okay. So when you're taking on new customers, especially if you have a platform, challenge yourself. Are we treating onboarding and getting them to love our product? Or are we just saying, complete your registration and we stop looking at all this kind of data and try and make sure that you maximize the experience that you get, maximize the value that you get long enough for you to be engaged, then to be retained, and then to be monetized? Or do we forget about them after sign up and treat them as a fresh customer every time? Traditional banks in the old days were guilty of this, where, for example, credit card products or savings products or loan products all treated a customer as almost a complete stranger, and you were reacquiring them all over again without using any of the things you know about them to enhance their experience. Very quickly, we come back to the blue flywheel, right? Let's remember that we must always shorten the path and the time of value perception to value experience to value adopted. What are the teams that we must apply cross-functionally? We must apply data and analytics teams, full funnel marketing teams. So this is from all the way from acquisition, all the way to retention and monetization. We must have customer experience teams, people who understand how the customers are interacting with both our physical and our digital products. And we need product teams and engineering teams to make this a reality. So you will need at all times a cross-functional team to actually make any impact in business nowadays. So if you're an implementation specialist, you have to make sure that not only are you representing the voice of the business and talking about monetization and connecting whatever you're building into monetization, but also making sure that the correct team is assembled to be able to actually make an impact. So the second point, and it's a bit quick from here, when execution can't succeed. Now, this is an example of Ring. It's a video doorbell that's cloud enabled, and it was acquired by Amazon for an amazing sum. And when you get an email from them, they actually know with product and software and marketing integration that the battery of your product is low because it is a cloud connected device. And then they don't just tell you or leave you on your own to realize that your video has turned off, your doorbell has turned off. They make sure that you are triggered in time. They make sure that you get all the tips and tricks to help you change the battery, right? So marketing actually adds value to the experience. But in addition, they also have such a nuanced understanding of the customer that they know that the person who's at home may not be the person who is tech savvy. So they make sure they solve the frictions in the experience. I won't go into any more detail, but what you need to understand is that you have to make sure that strategy is not the variable. You must make sure that strategy is executed, and you make sure that execution is a variable so that you get clarity to next steps, and then you can move on to optimize over time. And again, very quickly, from that corporate strategy view and that execution view, when you are being told to implement something, especially if it's a new product, do you have this kind of granularity in the strategy, making sure that you know who you're targeting? Is it the housewife who's at home who may not be tech savvy? Is it a young adult who's at home who may not be tech savvy? And you know that besides the trigger to change the doorbell battery, to charge the doorbell battery, you also give them the support that they need. So you must understand all their needs to find their unmet needs, but you need to know who they are. And nobody can ask you to do effective implementation if the strategy has led to an execution gap. And the last gap is the growth gap, when we don't have clear next steps at an executional level. So what exactly should teams be doing, right? So the teams should be directed by the leading indicators. And this is taking a CFO perspective, because if you want to create better customer experience or client shareholder value or more profitability, there are two ways. Either you grow or you improve efficiency. If it's growth, like expanding market share, there's several ways of expanding market. If it's market penetration, it's about taking share from your competitors. But do people realize that marketing is part of that? Do people realize that not just marketing is required for that, but then it becomes product development? And then, for example, if it's productivity, are we applying that cross-functional team, not just marketing, to helping reduce lower profit activities? Do we have the data and analytics to understand that? Do we have the experience that allows us to raise our prices and so on and so forth? So when we talk about product market fit, what we need to do is to ensure that both growth is increasing, right? As well as engagement is increasing. So we have to have the right kind of analytics that make sure that we are attracting new users and we can reliably grow new users for this new product every month. And we are making sure that they're engaging. We have the analytics to ensure effective implementation and execution. And it's very important to track engagement because it is predictive of retention over time. And over time, you can't have a business unless you retain the customers you have acquired. And that is de-risking product-led growth or de-risking any kind of growth, honestly, and making sure that you have addressed all three of the typical strategy gaps. So in a nutshell, let's always make sure that our company's strategy is based on leading indicators, that the company's strategy is not a gap in defining the product or the offering strategy. We make sure that we have lagging indicators that are mid to long term, right? Revenue, user growth, all these lagging indicators that have been created by things that happened, weeks, months, years ago. They connect to North Star metrics, which are leading indicator and representative, and daily leading indicators that guide daily execution and implementation. Overall, this is the funnel, but I probably won't go into that. I think it's for another talk, but identify which of the moments failed in your customer's journey, and make sure that a cross-functional team is applied to solve the churn in between the steps in the customer journey. Because at the end of the day, driving growth is easier said than done, because you either take on product development debt or you take on go-to-market marketing debt. And it will always be a pendulum swinging between each of these, but you want to make sure that you avoid any unnecessary debt and make sure that you're targeting correctly, know the problem you're solving, know the person you're solving it for, know exactly what their unmet need is, and avoid any unnecessary debt, because it's very difficult to manage the pendulum swinging between these two. Otherwise, you're forced for these teams to absorb more work, or you're forced to pay to outsource this work. And I think in a nutshell, that probably wraps up for today. As I said, this is several hundred slides words condensed into what I hope was something close to 20 minutes. And I thank you all for being here with me and listening to my very strong feelings around how implementation and digital products work together.
David, well done. First of all, thank you. Can I ask you just to stop sharing screen so we can welcome everybody on?
Excellent.
And we're going to have a breakout discussion in just a moment, but I've got a question for you. I have about 5 or 6 questions, but so we start and finish on time, I'm going to keep it short. The first question, one of your early comments was the important, and first of all, thank you for my apologies. Thank you for a phenomenal presentation. You continue to develop this work and your content and material. And you've explained very well the challenge of de-risking strategy and the importance of the lagging indicators, moving customers, providing the value. The examples you gave of Apple and the doorbell were excellent. Okay. So I'm going to ask you just to stop sharing when you're ready, David, and then
I've lost the button. I'm just trying to. There you go. I couldn't get it. Yeah.
So my quick question is, you mentioned early on, you're working very much with venture capital, and you say, getting to shift their mindset from, to customer journey lens. But many of us who have been involved with startups or venture capital, we know the focus is the revenue lens and acquiring customers and looking at revenue. So what advice do you give organizations when they're in that zone, when it's all about, returning value and looking at ROE and, rather than, and shift, to get them to focus on that customer lens surely cannot be easy.
Oh, I'm glad you asked, because that I wish I had my slides back on the screen, but essentially we always remind them. Yeah, it's fine. But we always remind them that it's actually a dependency process, right? So if you remember the 3 moments, right? Moment of value perception, moment of value experienced, moment of value adopted. You have to get them through those 3 moments, and at value adopted, you have the chance to monetize. If you don't get them to the moment of value adopted by having very strong and positive engagement, right? Moment of value experience, you can't get them to monetization. So we can talk about monetization all we like, and it will always be a lagging indicator. But lagging indicators are not prescriptive. They're not clarity of next steps. Teams need leading indicators that are prescriptive, things that guide them on the way forward. So everything is a dependency. Skipping steps causes dependency gaps that we went through, right? Strategy gap, execution gap, growth gap. And so we have to fix any gaps that exist, solve the dependencies in the process, and then make sure that we have leading indicators that are representative of engagement. Because, for example, retention has to be measured over time. So you need 6 time periods to measure retention. But for engagement, you can measure that on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, right? So you have to look at those kinds of the correct kind of leading indicators. And there's a lot of confusion in the market on what really is a leading indicator. Nobody would say, please, I don't want a leading indicator, but there's a lot of confusion in actually finding meaningful leading indicators. and making sure that they're the same indicators that lead to retention. Because some people say app login is a retention metric, but it is not, because there is no value in logging into an app.
Yeah.
So it has to be an engagement, sorry, it has to be an engagement retention indicator of the moment that they experience a core value in your product.
And your statistic about how many people download and never open an app, that was scary.
Oh, the statistics are shocking. Like I should actually have them written down, because every time I try to remember them, they're just too shocking and I think I'm exaggerating.
Yeah.
But literally, the number of people who so first of all, you spend so much money getting them to the point where they'll download the app, right? This whole acquisition funnel. And then you get them to download the app, and then you hope that they log in and use the app more than once. And from downloading and not using and logging in once and not using, right? It's 70% or 90% loss of that customer group. And then you look at your phone, I challenge you, look at your phone, look at the home screen of your phone, right? And then think of all the other apps on your phone. And then even on your home screen, how many of those apps do you use even once a week?
Okay. David, I want to give everyone an opportunity to discuss and reflect, because you've shared so much value, and the model, is, a fascinating approach as you look at, how CFOs have to be working with CMOs. So we're going to go to the breakouts. We're going to have about 8 minutes of discussion. Is there, before I go, anyone want to ask David a question before we go into the breakouts?
Hi, Gerald.
Hey, David, this is Gerald Leonard. Do you have a book?
I will do in 3 to 6 months. But if you go to my LinkedIn or my website, you will see recorded workshops such as this. They're a little bit longer than this, each of them. And each of them is contributing to several chapters of the book. So I hope you get some value from that.
Maybe you can post the website in the chat box during the breakout.
I will do.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I
Gerald.
sent you a LinkedIn connection. Thanks.
Michelle, please.
Yeah, just a quick question. Is there a way to pilot this kind of growth system first for an organization?
To pilot it. So what I would say is that there needs to be a certain amount of data fluency so that you're operating from the correct diagnosis of where in the funnel the gap is happening. You can examine lagging indicators, and that's not a bad thing in the short term. But in the medium term, you want to get those lagging indicators to leading indicators. And with free digital tools that are available, you can get those indicators actually. But it does require, again, the marketing team to be working with the product or engineering team to be working with the customer experience team, and so on and so forth. But if you're an organization, for example, you mentioned, right, that you're a leader at several kinds of, I guess, organizations, right? So associations or something like that. In that case, then you would have a way that you're acquiring new members, right? So the data would come from your websites, any ads, any events that you do, and you'd be connecting offline and online activity, and you'd be trying to find what kind of activity created the most, the most users who are the right fit for your organization.
Right. Yeah. If I'm permitted, so just a quick follow-up, because changing an organization to work like in pods, like cross-functional teams, really, it's a lot of discussions, maybe year-long discussions, right, for some. So I'm thinking, if it's an organization, let's say your example with physical branches and digital platforms, if there is a way to sort of test if that kind of organization works, let's say just looking at just metro branches instead of nationwide branches first, and let's see if this cross-functional team will in fact be functional, right? Just for that small implementation first. I was thinking more, or maybe like in the case of the iPhone, let's try it first to, like the first 100 customers or something like that.
So yes, so that's actually two different things, and let me try to break them up for you, right? So with the iPhone, for example, that email would have been tested on increasingly larger groups of people and assessing the cause and effect and the impact. Is it creating the impact that we want before it's rolled out large scale? And with
Okay.
digital products and
Clarify
platforms,
that, David. They would have experimented first.
they would have experimented, right, on increasingly larger populations of segments or on different segments. In a fully digital product, yes, you can do that. But the first part of what you were saying is very true and very painful, right? That actual creation of that cross-functional team, but that is not the solution, right? That is the tool, and that is, you know, several steps down the way. The first question is the strategy gap. Have we identified where in the journey we actually have the churn? And if that churn is happening after acquisition, and let's say they're getting to the website, but they're not downloading the app, or they're not registering to become a member, then your churn is there. And is that churn the problem with value perception? Are they not seeing enough value that you need to get them to the moment of value experience, right? They won't become register a member. They won't, give you even an email for the mailing list. Then you apply the right set of teams to diagnose what that problem is. If they are signing up and then, they're doing your 7-day trial membership and then they're leaving after the 7-day trial, then it's a problem in the moment of value experienced. And then you apply the team to diagnose what's happening in that. Who's leaving? Is everybody leaving, or a certain type of person is leaving, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that cross-functional team is not the answer in itself. It is the diagnosis of what is the problem, what is the gap, where is it happening, who is it happening for, and then the correct things will flow. I think you will find that if you help diagnose more effectively, the resources will be, again, it's about product market fit, it's about showing value. So if you diagnose the problem with enough clarity, then the excitement to solve the problem is a bit better. I mean, today I got the CFO and the CMO in a room today to collaborate on a project, and it's never happened apparently before. So anything is possible if you dream.
All right, thank you so much.
We're not going to do the breakout, David, because we won't have enough time. So any other?
I broke the breakout. Sorry.
No, don't worry about it. It's not a problem. Let me open up, see if there's any other comments or questions. Okay, so David, I mean, you provided the model and it makes logical sense, but we're all implementers on the call, and you've emphasized the importance of the leading indicators to drive it. But from a leadership behavior perspective, what do you see as the biggest challenge in getting leaders to rethink, to de-risk their whole strategy, and in the approach that you're recommending? So when you're working with the venture capitals and you're working with the startups, what is the biggest behavioral challenge that you see you need to overcome?
So in fact, one of the earliest slides that I brought specifically for your group as implementers, because I'm actually an implementer, I've never done a strategy without the implementation itself. It is that bi-directional question that I triggered you, right? Is this bi-directional? Are you guys feeding the data up, and are they giving guidance down? And how interactive and how frequent is that interplay? McKinsey has done research, and they found that the highest correlation in all their studies ever has been on how customer experience companies are versus their returns to shareholder success and their growth. And they call these top quartile companies. And these top quartile companies at the C-suite level are having leading indicators brought up to them. Because with that insight and that data-driven decision-making, then leadership can provide the resources top-down. Because innovation is a resource allocation problem, right? If leadership is telling you to build more branches, but the answer to reliable growth is building an app that takes off the unprofitable transactions, right? They need to know that.
Yeah.
So it is this complex, beautiful interplay, this dance of leading indicators being fed up and leadership allocating the resources correctly top down. But the diagnosis of that problem requires the removal of that strategy gap, the removal of the execution gap, and the removal of the growth gap.
Awesome. David, it's fantastic. Any other comments or questions before we wrap up?
I just had a practical one. Sorry, I was late. Will the recording be made available, please?
Yes, it will, Dora. I'll post it by tomorrow
Thank you so much.
on the our YouTube, and I'll send it out on the LinkedIn so you know it's up.
Thank you.
And that's a good note to end it on. So as you know, being the Implementation Institute, we start and finish on time. So can we give a virtual thank you to David for a phenomenal presentation? An amazing amount of knowledge has been shared. David, you know, if you want to know more, please do visit growthisasystem.com, growthisasystem.com, all one word. You know, I continue to work with David. We collaborate with different clients. He has phenomenal value that I bring into my clients. So David, I really appreciate you taking the time. We with you back to speedy health as well. Thank you for coughing and managing through tonight. To everyone else, thank you. It's wonderful to have an Asian presence today. And next month, we'll be hosting out of Europe. So the time we'll be posting in a few weeks. To everyone, have a wonderful implementation. Thank you for joining us today. A special thanks to David for presenting some phenomenal experience, and wish everyone a good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
It's been
Bye.
a real pleasure being a part of
Bye,
your.
everyone. Stay
Bye.
safe.
Take care,
Bye.
everybody.